my name is Carissa, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about cancer today. More specifically, the history on the war of cancer. To get started, I'm going to tell you a little story about a woman named Alicia. Alicia, back in the year 2000, worked for the company IBM. Most of you guys know that IBM makes computer chips. Now, she was hired on to work in the clean rooms of IBM to help mass produce these chips. She didn't know that she was going to be working with chemicals that cause cancer. So after a couple of years, she came down and was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Was it because of the gigabytes of the chips or the terabytes of the chips?
Neither. It was the chemicals that were being... Okay, so she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and a bunch of her other co-workers, all women, also came down with breast cancer. They filed a joint lawsuit against IBM, and they lost the case. And they lost the case because IBM sent in their lawyers, and they were doing their job as they were hired. And they presented the case against them, saying that they couldn't prove which chemical caused what type of cancer at what particular time. So, thus began a little of the war on cancer with the industries. Many of the industries, however, many of the leaders in many of the industries that help fight against cancer are leaders that actually generate a host of cancer-causing materials and products. One of the examples is Sir Richard Dahl. He was an epidemiologist who was instrumental in linking linking smoking to health problems. He secretly worked for chemical companies that were not disclosing ties with between smoking and cancer. Most physicians, as well, they don't know that when it comes to providing CAT scans for their clients, they don't know that the typical CAT scan equals about 400 X-rays, chest X-rays. In the last 25 years, the amount of radiation zapping North Americans from scanning and the like has increased 5-fold. Now, the stunning evidence here is the modern America's annual exposure to radiation from diagnostic machines is equal to that released by a nuclear accident that spewed the equivalent of hundreds of Hiroshimas across much of Russia and Eastern Europe. Most physicians don't know that a group of researchers got together at Yale, and they estimated that the radiation from a CAT scan from the head to the abdomen will kill 2,500 people a year. Now, many of those young people are under the age of 40, and they are coming down with cancer. And one of the reasons is there have been excessive X-rays in infants and children, and our failures to reduce the exposures to other cancer hazards like those in urban air and agents that can leach from some plastics in our environment. Moving on to our second point, there have been some collaborators that have helped fight against cancer, and some that have been on the industry side. Now, one of the collaborators, his name is Wilhelm Hooper. Now, he was hired on by the DuPont company, and they help make, they produce dyes. Many of their employees were forced to work under factory conditions in which they were working with very hazardous chemicals and not given any protection for their hands and for inhalation of these fumes. When William Hoover was hired on, he noted these and took it to the upper management to notify them. Now they said that they were aware of these issues, but it's cheaper to pay people for their disabilities, or it's cheaper to pay the people for their disabilities and their families for their deaths than it is to change the way they do things. Moving on to the FDA. The FDA has been known to kind of swoop in and save the day to help protect consumers. Now, PEG is polyethylene glycol, and that is a cancerous substance. And it's been found in everyday products, such as shampoo, conditioner, lotions, and even found in baby products. And in Europe, they have taken the initiative to ban all these chemicals from their shelves. The U.S. has not done so. In fact, the FDA just came out a few years ago, recently, saying that it is up to the consumer to decide whether they deem the product safe for them to use. Some environmental factors that have been causing cancer in the public. After inhaling tar and poisonous fumes from coke ovens, black steel workers succumbed to waves of lung cancer in the 1950s. Yet the industry argued that the blacks were just more susceptible to lung cancer. What they left out was that while 1 in 8 Americans say is black, 1 in 3 works in a blue-collar job, and 1 in 5 lives within 2 miles of that hazardous waste site. Now, this increased environmental burden has never been considered when trying to understand the rates of prostate, breast, and colorectal cancer, which are very predominant in blacks and in whites. Even China, who's now a booming industrial nation, has admitted to dumping a bunch of their waste into their rivers. And to this day, China now lists cancer as its #1 killer. Now, my last point will be that some of our environmental hazards, like trash. We want to get trash as far away from us as possible. However, we've noticed that hermaphroditic polar bears and gender-confused beluga whales are being found in the Arctic Ocean with levels of pollutants in their fat that would qualify them to be buried in a toxic waste site. Children with autism and other brain defects, tumors or leukemia, and young men with testicular cancer, lower sperm count, and testosterone are increasing everywhere. They've even noticed that baby boys are being born less. Now, some of these things are maybe only coming to light because people are searching for these problems. So, the big question that I will leave you with is, how do we figure out whether other parts of the modern world are placing us at risk of coming down with health problems that we could avoid? Thank you for your time.